Dr. Cathvoren adjusted his recording device for the third time that morning. His forearms trembled slightly as he watched the human transport vessel descend through the amber clouds of Nexus Prime. The Valkyrie archaeologist had spent 40 cycles studying the Precursor civilization. He had devoted his entire existence to understanding the beings who had built wonders across 1,000 star systems before vanishing 3 million years ago. Every species in the galactic community treated Precursor sites with absolute reverence. The Colonists built temples around them. The Mindari refused to even breathe near them without filtration masks. The Valkyrie, like himself, required 7 years of training before they could even apply for permission to view a Precursor ruin from orbit. Then the humans had arrived. The transport touched down on what the humans casually called Landing Pad 7. It was actually a Precursor navigation array that had once guided ships across impossible distances. Cathvoren watched in horror as the landing struts crushed ancient crystal formations that had survived 3 million years of cosmic radiation. "Welcome to the Nexus Prime Heritage Site," announced a cheerful human voice over the local communication channel. "Please remember to stay on marked paths, deposit trash in designated receptacles, and enjoy your visit to humanity's most popular vacation destination." Vacation destination. Cathvoren felt 2 of his heart skip beats. He had been sent by the Galactic Archaeological Council to document this phenomenon. Other species had reported similar observations, but nobody had believed them. Surely no civilization could be so casual about the sacred remnants of the Precursors. Surely the reports were exaggerated. They were not exaggerated. The transport doors opened, and humans poured out like water from a broken container. They wore colorful clothing decorated with images of the very ruins they had come to see. Children ran ahead of their parents, shouting with excitement. One young human was already eating something from a bag while walking toward the main temple complex. Cathvoren activated his recording device and began speaking in a hushed voice. Day 1 of observation. Human colonists have established what they call a tourism industry around the largest Precursor complex ever discovered. Initial observations confirm that they show no apparent fear or reverence toward the site. Proceeding to document further, he followed the group at a respectful distance. The humans walked along paths that had been carved directly through Precursor architecture. Actual paths, cut through walls that predated their entire species by millions of years. Signs with arrows pointed toward different attractions: the Temple of Echoes, the Crystal Gardens, the viewing platform. Someone had given names to places that the Valkyrie had only ever referred to by careful numerical designations. A human child ran past Cathvoren and touched a pillar covered in Precursor script. Just touched it, with bare hands. No protective equipment. No decontamination procedures. The child's mother called out for him to stop running, and he laughed and kept going. Subject exhibits complete disregard for contamination protocols. Cathvoren whispered into his recorder. No visible consequences observed. Child appears healthy. This contradicts all established safety guidelines. He continued following the tour group toward the main temple structure. A human guide stood at the entrance, holding a small device that projected images into the air. "All right, folks, gather around," the guide said with a warm smile. "This beautiful building behind me is approximately 3.2 million years old. The Precursors used it for purposes we still don't fully understand, but our best guess is that it served as some kind of community center or a gathering place. Now, if you look up, you'll see the famous ceiling mosaics that have been featured in over 200 human films and television programs. 200 films. They had made entertainment about this place." Cathvoren felt dizzy. "Feel free to take pictures," the guide continued. "Flash photography is totally fine. The materials here have survived supernovas, so your camera isn't going to hurt anything. Now follow me inside and watch your step. The floors can be a little uneven." The group entered the temple, and Cathvoren followed. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light from crystals that had burned for 3 million years without fading. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, covered in patterns that seemed to move when viewed from certain angles. It was one of the most sacred places in the known galaxy. A human teenager was taking a picture of herself in front of it. "Mom, get one of me with the glowy wall thing," she called out. Kethvorn found a corner and continued his documentation. He watched humans sit on precursor benches that had been placed there by beings of unimaginable advancement. They ate lunch on those benches. One family had spread out a blanket and was having what appeared to be a picnic. The artifacts show no signs of degradation despite constant physical contact, he noted. Human assumption appears correct. Precursor technology is remarkably durable. However, this does not excuse the complete absence of respect being displayed. A human man approached him. He was older, with gray hair and kind eyes. He wore a shirt that said Nexus Prime Family Reunion 2487 on it. "First time visiting?" the man asked. Kethvarn struggled to respond. "I am here to observe. Your people's treatment of this site is quite unusual by galactic standards." The man laughed. "Yeah, we get that a lot. I remember when the Colonists delegation came through. Poor guys nearly fainted when they saw kids climbing on the fountain structure. But you know what we figured out?" "What?" "These Precursor folks, whoever they were, they built things to last. I mean really last. My grandfather touched these walls 50 years ago. His grandfather touched them 50 years before that. And nothing has ever broken. Nothing has ever faded. So we started thinking maybe these places were meant to be used. Maybe that's why they made everything so tough." Kethvarn considered this perspective. It was completely foreign to everything he had been taught. But the Precursors were an advanced civilization beyond our comprehension. Their works should be preserved and studied with the utmost care. "Oh, we study them plenty," the man said. "Got research teams all over the place, but we also live with them. Kids play here. Couples get married here. Old folks come to see the sights before they pass on. These ruins have been empty for 3 million years. Maybe they're happy to have visitors again." The man patted Kethvorn on what he assumed was his shoulder and wandered off to rejoin his family. Over the following days, Kethvorn documented everything. He watched human scientists work alongside tourists, running experiments while families walked past eating frozen treats. He observed a wedding ceremony held in the Crystal Gardens, where a human couple exchanged vows surrounded by structures that had witnessed the birth and death of stars. He saw children learn to read Precursor script from educational displays, treating the ancient language like a puzzle to be solved rather than a mystery to be feared. He visited the gift shop. They sold replicas of Precursor artifacts, educational books, and something called a snow globe that contained tiny copies of the temple floating in liquid. It was simultaneously the most disrespectful and the most endearing thing he had ever seen. On his 5th day, something unexpected happened. He was observing a group of human researchers when alarms began sounding throughout the complex. A section of wall that had stood for 3 million years had begun to shift. Ancient mechanisms were activating for the first time since before humanity's ancestors had climbed down from trees. The Velthary protocol was clear. Evacuate immediately. Establish a perimeter. Call for specialist teams. Wait for approval from 17 different committees before taking any action. The humans did something different. A researcher named Dr. Sarah Chun ran toward the activating mechanism while everyone else ran away. She pulled out a handheld device and began scanning. Other researchers joined her. Within minutes, they had formed a team and were studying the activation in real time. "This is incredible," Dr. Chun shouted. "The resonance patterns match the theoretical models we developed last year. Someone get me a power coupling. I want to see if we can communicate with it. Is that safe?" another researcher asked. "Probably not. Do it anyway." Cat Vaughan watched in amazement as the humans improvised an interface with technology that predated their species by geological ages. They made mistakes. They corrected them. They argued and debated and tested theories on the spot. Within 2 hours, they had established basic communication with the ancient system. It turned out to be a message, a welcome message. The Precursors had left it for whoever came after them. For 3 million years, it had waited for someone to activate it. And now a group of humans with handheld devices and stubborn curiosity had done what countless careful, reverent species had failed to do. The message was simple. It spoke of hope, of the belief that the universe would continue to produce beings capable of wonder and discovery. The Precursors had not expected worship. They had hoped for successors, for people who would see their works and be inspired to create their own. Cat Vaughan completed his report that night. He wrote about what he had witnessed with scientific precision, but at the end he added a personal observation that he knew would disturb the Galactic Archaeological Council. Perhaps we have been approaching Precursor sites incorrectly for thousands of years. We treated them as sacred spaces to be preserved behind barriers of fear and regulation. The humans treated them as gifts to be enjoyed. And the Precursors themselves, it seems, agreed with the humans. These ruins were never meant to be museums. They were meant to be homes, places where future species would live and laugh and grow. The humans understood this instinctively. They saw ancient wonders and felt not fear but welcome. They touched walls that we were afraid to breathe near, and those walls responded with messages of greeting. I do not suggest we abandon all protocols, but I do suggest we consider that reverence can sometimes become a barrier to understanding. The humans have taught me that the greatest respect you can show to the works of the past is to make them part of your present. He submitted his report and walked outside to watch the sunset through the crystal towers. A human child ran past him, laughing, chasing another child through gardens that had waited 3 million years for the sound of joy. An old woman sat on a bench, reading a book, completely comfortable in the presence of the impossible. Cat Vaughan found himself smiling, an expression his species rarely used. Perhaps the humans were on to something after all. Perhaps the best way to honor the past was not to lock it away, but to live with it, to make it part of daily life. To let children play in the shadows of giants and trust that the giants would have wanted it that way. He made a decision. Tomorrow he would join a tour group. He would take pictures. He would buy something ridiculous from the gift shop. And for the first time in his 40 cycles of study, he would actually experience a Precursor site instead of just observing it from a careful distance. The Precursors, he suspected, would approve.